Every thrill-filled Formula One race carries the echoes of past tragedies. Moments when careers ended, rules changed, and safety was forever transformed. From fiery crashes to fatal impacts, the painful losses of iconic drivers left an indelible mark on the sport. Each tragedy triggered sweeping reforms, reshaping Formula One into the safer yet still relentlessly competitive spectacle we see today. Formula One has always pushed the boundaries of speed, engineering, and human courage. But for much of its history, it did so at a deadly cost. From the early years when minimal protections were in place, to the modern era of meticulous engineering and rigorous standards, each fatal incident, from Lorenzo Bandini's 1967 crash to Jules Bianchi's 2014 collision, served as a catalyst for change. This article explores key tragedies that not only shook the paddock, but also revolutionized safety in motorsport. Ayrton Senna, Imola 1994. The death of Ayrton Senna is, without question, the most impactful moment in Formula One history. Considered one of the greatest drivers of all time, Senna's crash at the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix marked the darkest weekend F1 had ever known. Senna's Williams FW16 veered off at the high-speed Tamburello corner on lap 7. Traveling at nearly 190 miles per hour, his car struck the concrete wall with tremendous force. A suspension arm pierced his helmet, causing fatal head injuries. He was pronounced dead a few hours later. Tragically, Senna's death came just a day after Austrian driver Roland Ratzenberger was killed during qualifying, making it a catastrophic weekend for the sport. The back-to-back fatalities sent shockwaves through the F1 world, prompting an immediate reevaluation of safety protocols. From track layout modifications to improved crash barriers and the eventual development of the HAN's device and halo, Senna's death was the catalyst that forced F1 to prioritize safety like never before. Jules Bianchi, Suzuka 2014. Though less visually dramatic than others, the crash that claimed Jules Bianchi's life had lasting repercussions. During the 2014 Japanese Grand Prix, heavy rain and fading light created treacherous conditions. On lap 43, Bianchi lost control of his Marussia and slid off the track, straight into a recovery vehicle that was attending to another crash. The collision was brutal. Bianchi suffered severe head trauma and never regained consciousness. He passed away 9 months later in July 2015, the first driver to die from an F1 race incident since Senna. Bianchi's accident revealed glaring holes in F1's approach to on-track safety during adverse conditions. As a result, the virtual safety car (VSC) system was introduced to slow down cars during yellow flags, and rules about heavy weather racing were tightened. It was a tragic reminder that safety is a never-ending pursuit. Niki Lauda, Nürburgring 1976. Niki Lauda's fiery crash at the 1976 German Grand Prix didn't take his life, but it came incredibly close. On the infamous Nürburgring Nordschleife, Lauda's Ferrari veered off the track, hit a wall, and burst into flames. He was trapped inside the car for almost a minute before fellow drivers managed to pull him out. Lauda suffered third-degree burns to his face, head, and hands. He also inhaled toxic gases that damaged his lungs. Just 6 weeks later, he made a miraculous return to racing at the Italian Grand Prix. This crash sparked major safety discussions regarding both the design of tracks and emergency response. The Nordschleife, with its 170 corners and treacherous layout, was immediately deemed too dangerous for F1. It was removed from the calendar, and the sport began the slow process of modernizing circuits to prevent similar disasters. Roland Ratzenberger, Imola 1994. While Senna's crash overshadowed it, the death of Roland Ratzenberger was a tragedy in its own right. Just 1 day before Senna's fatal accident, Ratzenberger crashed during qualifying after a front-wing failure at high speed. The young Austrian was trying to qualify for only his second F1 Grand Prix when he lost control and slammed into a concrete wall at over 190 miles per hour. His neck snapped from the impact. He died instantly. His crash served as the grim prelude to what would become F1's darkest weekend. In its wake, Ratzenberger's death led to reforms just as vital as those prompted by Senna's. It reminded the sport that even in the early stages of a career, no driver is immune from danger, and every life counts. Gilles Villeneuve, Zolder 1982. Gilles Villeneuve was known for his fearless driving and raw talent, often pushing his car beyond its limits. During qualifying for the 1982 Belgian Grand Prix at Zolder, Villeneuve collided with the much slower car of Jochen Mass. His Ferrari was launched into the air, somersaulting violently before disintegrating midair. Villeneuve was thrown from the car and suffered fatal neck injuries. He was just 32 years old. The crash spotlighted the dangers of qualifying traffic and the lack of cockpit protection. It accelerated discussions around driver head safety and circuit communication standards, though meaningful change would take years to implement. Villeneuve's death was a loss not just to F1, but to motorsport as a whole. Tom Price, Calamy 1977. Tom Price's death remains one of the most bizarre and horrifying in F1 history. During the South African Grand Prix, a marshal ran across the track to assist a driver whose car had caught fire. Price, approaching at high speed, had no time to react. He struck the marshal at full speed, instantly killing both himself and the 19-year-old track worker. The fire extinguisher the marshal was carrying struck Price's helmet with incredible force, leading to catastrophic injuries. The incident led to fundamental changes in how marshals are deployed during races. It exposed the need for better training, radio coordination, and race control protocols. Lessons that were deeply embedded into F1's evolving safety standards. Ronnie Peterson, Monza 1978. Ronnie Peterson's crash at Monza is infamous for what happened, and what didn't happen fast enough. At the start of the race, a multi-car pileup sent Peterson's Lotus into the barriers. The car burst into flames, and Peterson was trapped inside. While he was pulled from the wreckage alive, delays in medical attention proved fatal. He suffered multiple leg fractures and later died from embolisms, blood clots that developed due to delayed treatment. The tragedy underlined how critical response time is in crash scenarios. F1 responded by enhancing on-track medical facilities, mandating helicopters at every Grand Prix, and ensuring that trained trauma personnel would always be on standby. It was a painful lesson, but one that pushed the sport closer to modern medical standards. Francois Severt, Watkins Glen 1973. Francois Severt was seen as the heir to Jackie Stewart at Tyrrell. During qualifying at Watkins Glen, Severt lost control through the Essex section and slammed into the barriers. The car disintegrated and Severt was killed instantly, his body crushed in the wreck. The crash had a devastating effect on Stewart, who chose to retire immediately, skipping what would have been his final race. Severt's crash raised early alarms about inadequate track barriers and driver protection. Though safety developments were slow at the time, it laid early groundwork for reform. The legacy of Severt lives on in Stewart's relentless advocacy for safety, which helped change F1 in the decades to follow. Behind every trophy, podium, and champagne spray in Formula One lies a darker history, one shaped by sacrifice. The lives lost and the injuries sustained were not in vain. They forced F1 to evolve, pushing it from a reckless daredevil sport into a technically sophisticated, safety-conscious spectacle that millions now enjoy with a greater sense of security. If you found this deep dive into F1's most tragic moments meaningful, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell for more untold stories from the world of motorsport. Because sometimes, the most important stories aren't about who won, but what was lost along the way.